hello there, and this is your favorite producer, Justin Burton. I'm here to tell you that we had a glitch during our show Friday night, which caused myself to lose power, which in turn caused me to lose internet, and paused the show for just a little bit. Well, Carlos ended up taking over, and I guess he had a few issues of his own, because it recording cut out a few times, so there's going to be some gaps in Friday night show. However, if you want to watch the whole thing, I promise not that long, watch your time this time, please go over to twitch.tv/live_love_play. That is our eyebrows of doom, Ross's channel, and he will be very happy for you all to give him some views. He works very hard for us, and you need to send him some love. Alright, enjoy the show.
Cable TV, movie theaters, in-person conventions, are they all doomed? Find out tonight. All of this and more on The Real Super Geeks.
Spoiler alert, they are.
We almost didn't do the internet opener.
Spoiler alert, they are. Welcome to this week's episode of The Real Super Geeks. And to my fellow co-hosts, let's do a quick round of hellos and how we're surviving the latest week in the pandemic. And then we're going to dive into, a dozen or so topics. So let's start off with our stalwart producer this week, Justin Burton. Justin, how are you holding up?
I'm doing alrighty. How's everybody else doing?
We're about to find out. Travis, how are you?
I'm all right. I have a surprise for everybody.
He's got a new fidget spinner.
No.
Oh, God, he's stripping.
I've got the best shirt ever.
Oh, wow.
Oh, that's,
Nice.
Oh my God.
He's got a Narek
cool.
shirt.
That's not Narek.
That's not Eric.
That's not Picard Spock.
That was worth it.
Oh, that was you made it. You forced
He
him
just
to
made him
disappear.
quit. He just made him force it. He just quit. Come back.
You are this is the, I have to like.
Is that Sephiroth?
You have
Jeez.
earned. You all are earning this. You all earned this. You all earned this. Just shut up.
Well, Travis, your love for Elnor is well known. So congratulations. That's a great T-shirt. I think you win the T-shirt prize for the week. So let's move over to our. Well, you don't have the index avatar up anymore, so we can't call you our official mascot, Son. So I'm just going to say, Son, welcome. How are you?
I started a new gig this week. So I really hope this works. So say hello to Sunbee.
I'm staring at this.
Am I missing a pun or something?
It looks like you're a
You
manatee.
should know more than any of us, Travis. Mr. Pee-wee Herman Playhouse shitposting group admin.
Right.
Well,
right.
here's the thing. I know nothing about Pee-wee. Absolutely nothing. When I named the group, it was literally just like a shoot from the hip. Like, what is something that will piss everyone off and be funny for April Fools? Oh shit, I'm stuck with this for the rest of the month. Damn
Well,
it.
we're coming up on the end of the month, so you must be happy
You,
about.
you have no idea just how much I am looking forward to it. You have no fucking idea. Like,
So, folks at home, in case you're wondering what we're talking about, Travis is one of the admins for the largest Star Trek group on Facebook. Except for the past month, it's been the
really hoping that the there's recording.
I started recording.
I'm really hoping that freaking like the renaming process goes fine, because immediately after I realized shit, we are stuck with this for a month, I immediately created a new group and just immediately named it Star Trek. So like no one else could take the name. Like, oh, I hope this, like, I still have it. And I just crashed. Everything's still up.
Yes, everything's
Yep.
still here.
Yep, we still see you.
We see you. We hear you.
Basically,
We feel you.
I created a new group, named it Star Trek to hopefully save the new name. I'm just hoping that like it's like a only one person can have this name deal, and hopefully like when I change this group, it'll be a flawless like, oh, your group's named Star Trek again. Because if I botched the name, I'll be pissed. Like I will be pissed. Like I'll be beating myself up, honestly. Like,
Well, we'll be here for you, Travis. So
Sadly.
thank you. Meanwhile, let's move on to Jason. Jason, how are you doing? There at Star Labs.
Yeah, I'm quarantined in this awesome facility. No, really, like I'm starting to get loopy, I think, from the whole quarantine thing. Just talking to myself, talking to my dog, hearing my dog talk back.
That's the thing.
Yeah,
That's
she's
the
starting
thing.
to tell me. She's starting to tell me about stories and stuff. So it's it's been a long.
If she
4
starts
weeks.
telling you to start killing people in New York City this summer, stop listening.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I will.
All right, and finally, I think the most appropriate nickname for our theme of the week, Ross, the eyebrows of doom, 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 doom.
One vision, one purpose. The technology of peace.
In the name of Cain.
In the
Peace
name of
through
Cain.
Peace through power.
Peace through power.
No.
We're referencing Command and Conquer, which is what my background is from.
I've never played that game, so.
Well,
the
let's
remaster's
dive
coming out soon,
in.
so you get to enjoy it that way.
Let's dive into our first Doom-related topic. And this was the news that apparently another asteroid almost destroyed us this week. Son, I think you posted this one. You want to bring us up to speed?
Basically, April has been asteroid parade month around the Earth. So, on the 15th, we had a house-sized asteroid pass really close to Earth in a near miss. The problem was we didn't discover it until, 3 days before on the 11th? Yeah, that was scary.
Is it a near miss if it didn't hit us?
Yes.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be a near hit?
It's all, potato.
Is the glass full or
I
half
mean,
empty?
what do they call it in baseball? Strike.
Is it? I would call it a foul ball myself, but that's just because I'm partial to Earth.
The point is that it didn't hit us. Although a house-sized asteroid wouldn't do significant damage,
Yeah.
similar
Dude,
to
it
the
could-
one that struck in Russia a few years ago.
Mhm.
Was that smaller?
That one was decently big, honestly.
Wasn't
I
it
mean,
like I thought it was bus-sized?
It even something the size of a city bus would burn up and explode in the atmosphere well before it got to the ground.
Right. Well, that's what happened in Russia. That one exploded in the atmosphere and broke everything for 100 miles.
and it was
It would have to
awesome.
get pretty low in the atmosphere in order to do any real damage, any kind of damage like that. So it was probably a lot bigger before it got to us.
Right.
Yeah, but we're kind of in biblical times, right? So I wouldn't doubt it.
Like
Boy, I hope
have-
not.
follow a lot of. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Travis.
The-
Then son.
I follow a lot of these science headlines along this, and I honestly see a lot of like, oh, this asteroid, passed by, week or so ago. This is honestly a pretty common thing, if you ask me. So it's not something that really alarms me, if that makes any sense. I just find it kind of like, oh, cool,
It's sort of like it is what it is, but on a cosmic scale.
Yeah.
It's almost like gravity pushes this stuff away.
It's like science or something.
I know.
I heard that it was a big bottle of Clorox in space.
Oh, I heard it was a big
No.
Lysol spray can.
That's the next thing. See,
You guys are all,
there's another article here. There's another asteroid due to pass on the 28th, 29th of this month. So this one actually looks like someone wearing a mask in our first NASA images of the object.
you guys are all sheep. Gravity is a lie.
You believe in the moon?
No, but he does believe in the firmament.
I believe in waves upon the firmament.
If gravity was real, wouldn't the water just all float away?
Folks.
Waves
I've
upon
been
the
watching too many
firmament.
flat Earth trolls.
Yeah. Oy.
But yeah,
That's a rabbit hole I don't want to fall down.
Yeah,
want-
me
Yeah.
Oh,
either.
I don't fall down it. I just watch the trolls who fall down it and
Go
for
on
us
to
and
YouTube.
entertain us.
Go onto YouTube and look up sovereign citizen getting arrested videos. And some people are flat earthers, and they are quite amusing.
That moves solidly into Tiger King territory for me.
And
So
also inserts some things into my YouTube search algorithm that I would rather not have.
yes, good point. You don't want that in your search algorithm.
Because I don't want to see more suggestions similar to it.
Fair enough.
That's why you always go. You YouTube those things in incognito.
Yeah, go into
There's that.
incognito.
Yeah,
Good
that
point.
and the pus popping videos, the boil
Hey,
popping
there he
videos.
is.
Ugh. That's on my Facebook too for some reason. Ideal woman, stop it. Stop
There you have it. There you have it. All right. Well, let's go to our next topic in science, and that is, an optimistic one that NASA has found a new exoplanet in old Kepler data, which is basically a planet remarkably like our own. Son, this one came from you too. You want to
Yep.
tell us more?
Okay, so apparently Kepler is the gift that keeps on giving. Some folks were running back through some old Kepler data using new imaging equipment or newer imaging equipment, and they ran across what they've been basically saying is an Earth-like planet, because it's the way that the imaging software basically mapped out where the planet was is it's in the Goldilocks zone, so it would support life. It does seem to be of the right gravitational proportion to hold an atmosphere, or enough of an atmosphere to sustain life. It looks like it might contain water, although it does look mostly like an arid planet. But yeah, no, all of the signs look good for this being a possible lifeboat, maybe.
Any big worms moving through the sand?
Not that we can see. I mean, Kepler's dead, so we can't take a look at it anymore.
If it has those worms, there wouldn't be any visible water.
Right.
Well, that's not fairly true. I mean, depends on how much oxygen is in the thing. I mean, we used to have millipedes that were the size of a car on this planet. So
Yeah, we used to have a lot more oxygen in our atmosphere than we do today. So it made for big things.
Very big things.
Interestingly enough, the planet was actually misidentified by the computer algorithm that was studying it. But a team of scientists actually went back through the data visually and found it.
Very
Well,
cool.
there you go.
Yeah.
Don't rely on algorithms too much. We talked about that last week, didn't we?
Yeah.
The trouble with algorithms.
The lesson that social media of all kinds is going through again.
Again, yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Well, let's move back into science fiction, and the speculation around where the heck, probably is a better way to put it, the Doctor we now know as Ruth fits into the Doctor Who timeline, and we get the question about whether or not she's a doctor from the past, or could it be a doctor from the future? Son, I know that this has been a topic of interest to you. You like Ruth. I like Ruth too. Where do we think she fits in, and do you think we're going to be seeing her again?
Well, it wasn't explicitly stated, but it was heavily implied that she exists pre the Doctor being the Doctor, at least in this 12 set of lives,
Mm-hmm.
or 13 set of lives. She exists as a part of the, whatever the hell they're calling their new CIA division, Center Celestial Intervention Agency thing. But that was the old, that's what they used to call it back in Classic Who. This new version of Ruth seems like she's from that time, memory wiped to be the Doctor we know from Hartnell on.
So confusing.
It is confusing. In fact, the article that we linked to on our Trello here goes into all the many and different ways in which it appears to contradict what has already been established about the Doctor and about Gallifrey, so that it makes it somewhat unclear where she fits into the timeline. Like one example is the whole thing about the TARDIS's chameleon. What is it called? The chameleon effect?
Chameleon circuit?
Circuit, yes. Going on the fritz, and so that's why it's been stuck looking like a police box. But that happened, in Hartnell or post Hartnell?
That was Hartnell's era, yeah.
Right. Whereas Ruth makes reference to that happening, in her time.
Yeah, right. Which is weird considering Hartnell was supposed to be a brand new Doctor who stole just a random non-working Type 40 police or a TARDIS that just happened to turn into a police box.
Yeah.
But then again, we've also seen so many TARDISes at this point. TARDISes?
Don't say tardigrade because we don't need a lawsuit.
But we've seen so many TARDIS at this point that it's possible that they could be two different TARDIS, and just the AI or whatever personality that runs the different TARDIS has an affinity for being a police box.
Well, no, because there at the end, she couldn't land the other TARDIS back on the planet because I guess it would cause both of them to interact or something like that. Was that the excuse they're using? They implied it was the same TARDIS. Well,
they're not using any excuse. I mean, it's just what they've shown us so far. So
I just think since the beginning of Gallifrey, the Doctor has been this timeless child that it really, really seems to take away from the emotional impact of a lot of the Matt Smith era Doctor stuff, honestly. Like the whole fact that he was supposed to die as a last stand on this planet and his TARDIS would be his grave, essentially. And like that whole thing kind of gets tossed out the window as, who cares? Now that like there's been Doctors before and before and before and before and before.
Yeah.
Because that was supposed to be like his last life, and it was a big thing that he was getting a 13th regeneration.
Then come to find out he never had a limit.
Yeah.
13 male regenerations.
Is that the distinction we're drawing?
I just really see,
It makes sense.
as much as I would like it, I have to call it fanwank at this point. I do not want to have a Ruth Doctor.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
They've already established that the Ruth Doctor is a previous set of incarnations of the Doctor. I don't want to see the Ruth Doctor show back up. If that's what they're going to do, stick to it.
I find her intriguing, so I would like to learn more myself. I mean, I understand what it does to sort of the
I would love to learn
timeline
more
question,
about her.
but I think as a
Maybe
character,
wrong.
she's very interesting.
I would love to see instead of having a River Song character, you would have basically a Ruth type character, or you would have Ruth showing up, helping the Doctor expose all of these memories.
Well, it'll be interesting. I hope they don't drop it. That's the thing I'm afraid of, is that they'll end up dropping this. And, you know,
Would this be a way to expand the universe?
Yeah, I mean, maybe her own mini. Like, not even a whole series. It's like a little.
You're cutting in and out, Jason.
Maybe going in on her backstory a little bit more. Nice. History, something. To give it something more than what we got.
I mean, aren't expansive universes kind of the thing now? Like, I think, the Arrowverse kind of started it. Then now we have, we have Star Trek is now happening, multiple series. We're going to see Star Wars have multiple series. Could this be the BBC maybe trying to introduce like a backdoor pilot to?
Well, maybe, but they've done that before. I mean,
several times
they had the
before.
Sarah Jane Chronicles. They had Class.
Torchwood.
They had Torchwood. I mean, so it's not new for this franchise.
Not to mention all the audio shows.
Right.
But why?
Right, exactly.
But why make a second Doctor Who show directly?
Have something to play whenever the main one's off. Sure.
I don't think so.
No.
Yeah,
At that point, you're massively cutting your Doctor Who budget in half.
Yeah.
And they already kind of did that soft launch with the former companion and the immortal girl.
Clara Oswald. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. That would, I guess, technically they could spin off in that direction, but that's not going to happen either. I mean, that actor
Maisie
isn't
Williams is
coming
a bit
back.
busy with other things.
Right. As is what's her name? Jenna Coleman.
Mhm.
She's been Victoria for 3 seasons, I think. So yeah, I think she's doing new
they
things.
even did the other one, the one with the good God, the lesbian chick and the girl who turned into water.
Yeah. I like them.
I'd rather have that as a series than
The one
us
set in
following-
Victorian era.
No, that was. I don't remember when that was, but that was like multiple seasons because she was pseudo following the Doctor as kind of a companion, but then it came back around to the end of her life was being met by the chick who was water now, and they go off to explore the galaxy by themselves. I really prefer that because they don't have a TARDIS. You can completely do whatever the hell you want with it.
All right. Well, we'll see what happens. I just I'm not sure that this franchise is in strong enough shape to take on
To handle another spinoff?
Yeah.
I don't think so either.
Yeah, I think they need to get their house in order first.
I agree. I really think that they need to solve this, whatever the hell is going on between the Master and his cyber time lords, and the Doctor being arrested, and whoever Ruth is and whatever past the Doctor has before being Hartnell, that needs to be solved. More than anything, that is what needs to be. Those are the 3 things that need to be wrapped up in the next season. And
I agree. I think, but they're all illustrative of a bigger issue, which is just, I don't think this franchise knows where it wants to go. And so it's just sort of, taking stabs at different possibilities and seeing, what sticks. I think that was a mixed metaphor. Sorry about that.
I really see. Here's the thing. I really enjoyed the good God, what was it? The India episode, the Pakistan India split episode. I really liked that because it was this kind of callback to what Doctor Who was supposed to be, this kind of educational thing while having action, adventure, all and mystery all mixed in with it. And what we got out of the first season was, bad guy, call back to something that is actually kind of classic Who mess. And then season 2 comes out and it's like this, and I hate saying this, but Chibnall is actually worse than the last guy.
Yeah, so far I would agree with you. I think in trying to put his own stamp on Doctor Who, he's just sort of aimless, aimlessly wandering around. His stories feel that way. There's no sense of coherence.
And here's the thing, you get those people who go on the whole catering to SJW this or that, and I'm like, maybe, but like, even if that's the case, where or how? I mean, even if that stuff is true, if you take all of those elements out, you still have terrible story writing in the first place.
Yeah.
This is the part of the show Carlos and Son go back and forth on Doctor Who.
Except we're actually kind of agreeing on this, but I think we've probably exhausted the topic for now. We'll certainly keep our eyes peeled on what happens next. Let's move.
Please, no Ruth. Oh my God! Please don't make her into Ruth.
Well, I wouldn't mind myself, but yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. Okay, let's move on to our next topic, which is I think this came from. Did this come from you, Ross? About Darren, the Batman movie that almost was back in around I think 2012, 2013.
Early 2000s, actually.
Oh, early 2000s. Where director, kind of artsy-fartsy indie director Darren Aronofsky was supposed to be producing Batman Year One. And
well, that's the thing, he actually was producing.
But it never got made.
Well, yes, and there is a reason for that, which I'll get into. So, as we said, Darren Aronofsky, popular for his film Requiem for a Dream, one of my first Underway movies, loved it, was tasked to bring Batman back to life after the absolute disaster that was Batman and Robin, the damn bat suit with nipples on it. Anyway, in an interview with Empire Magazine, he opened up a bit about his experience with the property, the early production that went into it, the scripting. He even got Frank Miller of Dark Knight Returns, the graphic novel, to come in and do some script writing with him. He had a very interesting idea of where to take it. It was more aligned with Batman Year One. And the interesting part about the revelations in this article is that originally he wanted Joaquin Phoenix to play Bruce Wayne and Batman. And as we all know, Joaquin Phoenix just came off of The Joker.
Indeed.
So it was an interesting story. The link is in the Trello. I'll drop the link in Twitch and group chat, so you can look at it yourself. But the reason that it fell apart was a conflict over this casting, where he wanted Joaquin Phoenix, the studio wanted Freddie Prinze Jr.
Which is so bizarre. I like Freddie Prinze Jr., but he ain't no Batman. But of course, I might have said the same thing about Michael Keaton, before his Batman. But Joaquin Phoenix, I think, clearly would have been superior. I think that was a better choice.
So as we know, eventually it went to Batman. Eventually went to Christopher Nolan, and did a great job with it. We love the Dark Knight series, but it's an interesting bit of coincidence and how things eventually turned out.
I did some additional research on some of the concepts that Aronofsky was pursuing in his version of Batman. And interestingly, he was very much upending most of what we traditionally associate with Batman. Bruce Wayne, for example, in his version was not a millionaire. He was actually a homeless man, and let's see, what else was it? Alfred wasn't a British butler. He was some other guy named Big Al. And so he basically tweaks all of the different characters and situations into a very different kind of universe for the character, that not in line with what we've come to think of as his secret identity, and the supporting characters around that. I think it would have been an interesting kind of one-off exploration in the way that sort of Joaquin Phoenix's Joker has been as well. But because it is nice to see a really talented director and set of writers who can play with a very legendary character and his backstory, and how they can twist it in some interesting ways. I think it would have been interesting to watch. I'm not sure it would have set up a franchise, but it certainly would have been a great one-off.
Yeah, but that's knowing that with that information in mind, it's no wonder the studio said no.
Oh yeah.
They don't want a one-off. They want sequels.
And you don't want to piss off your core audience. And I think if you really alter the history of Batman, you're going to piss off your core audience.
Well, could you imagine though, a homeless Batman, a homeless Bruce Wayne, and Big Al, his constant social worker?
Al was an African-American mechanic.
That's what it was, yeah.
And he drove around in a souped-up Lincoln Town car.
That's right. The Batmobile was a Lincoln Town car. I think it's some interesting stuff, but I don't see a franchise coming out of it. Unless it was really. Oh God, you have to remind us of this.
Oh my God! Oh!
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
The bad suits of our nightmares.
You have no idea.
I hated that movie. I hated that movie.
Yeah, it was terrible.
I found it watchable, ironically enough.
Well, there is a certain amount of watchability to it, except that if you're a Batman fan in any way, all it does is really sort of ridicule the story, the legend, and
you're a fan of the Tim Burton movies, which is what this was built on.
Yeah, I like the Tim Burton movies, but then it just started going astray, like in the wrong direction, and this is where we ended up.
It seems like the Tim Burton film was its own dark take, and then like the follow-up films were all just kind of trying to take the piss out of it being dark.
Batman Returns was pretty dark on its own. It's
that was the
second
second one,
when
right?
Things started to get a little.
They just started
cartoony.
getting campy,
and then that last one just.
Right, it's like they were taking the Tim Burton aesthetic and then folding the 60s camp back into Batman and going, hey, it's not so dark anymore because look at all this campy.
Yeah. And that's when they lost me.
I mean, although I do have to admit, I did enjoy Edward Nygma.
Yeah, but that's actually from, that's that name anyway, and some of the backstory is actually from the comics. So that part wasn't so bad.
No, I did enjoy the portrayal.
The thing that pissed me off the most about that movie is the way they treated Mr. Freeze.
Yeah, I thought it was a terrible
in the 60s version. Yeah, he was pretty silly, but what they did with him in the animated series and then later in the comic is they really made him a real tragic villain, very relatable and emotional. And then what do we get? Arnold Schwarzenegger giving an entire 90 minutes of one-liners. Nothing but stupid one-liners. His last line in the damn movie. Oh God, make it stop.
See, here's the thing. As much as he was doing nothing but giving off those one-liners, it did still incorporate the tragic backstory. It did still give him a sense of you can understand why he does the thing he does, It's just, it seems like all the one-liners are its own coping mechanism.
I think you're giving him a lot more credit than it's due.
Having grown up with having grown up with the Adam West Batman movie, when I watched Batman and Robin for the first time, I very much was unfazed by it. Like this, you have to understand. When I watched this movie, I was not really a Batman fan. Like, it's not like I hated him, but I mean, I didn't have a lot to go on. I hadn't even seen the Dark Knight at this point, so I was very much just like, how bad could it be? And when I finished it, I was very much like, that really wasn't that bad from what I'm normally accustomed to.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you grew up with the Adam West version, then this isn't far from that. The problem is that in between, we had a whole, Bat renaissance that fizzled by the time it got to this movie.
It atrophied.
Okay, that's a good way of putting it.
But to be fair, that's not the worst take on a superhero, though. Worst possible take on a superhero.
I'll give you that.
What would you rank lower, Jason?
This one.
Oh, yeah, well, that thankfully never happened. Oh, God,
that never came out.
Yeah, it never
That
made
never
it past
came
this
out.
stage.
I'm just saying, they had a suit.
They had a suit.
In
Wow.
the suit.
What is
Yeah.
that?
Oh my god!
That is
Nicolas
Nicolas Cage as
Batman.
Superman.
Superman, yeah.
At the time, this would have been what, the 90s, early 90s?
Mullet Batman.
I think it was late 90s, wasn't it? Kevin Smith wrote the first screenplay, then it went to the guy who wrote Wild
It was
Wild
a turnaround
West.
for a really long time, and luckily nothing came of it because
There's a documentary
God.
on how epically that movie failed in pre-production.
yeah,
Yeah, it was a really good documentary.
The death of Superman, I believe it's called.
And if you would ever watch Kick-Ass, you would see why he would make.
You're fading out, Justin.
yeah, we can't hear you, Justin.
Okay, yeah, he makes a worse superhero appearance. I've watched him in Kick-Ass. No, no.
No, I thought Nicolas Cage did great in Kick-Ass.
I thought he did great in Kick-Ass too. I mean, also
He was in Kick-Ass too.
No, I didn't say also. Good one. But yeah, I mean, there are things that Nicolas Cage can be really good at. I don't think that role was one of them.
Well, and
and
I
he was very hot back then. That was why
Yeah.
so many people wanted him. But it was ill-conceived from the get-go.
Well, I also think that they were trying to deviate too much from the source material. I think there was this time and place where, like, you want to do a Superman movie, but it can't be a Superman movie, right? And I think if you read if you watch the death of Superman Lives or whatever the movie was called, like, they talk about how like they wanted to just basically throw away all of the core things that make Superman, like no flying, no, and it's like, then it's not Superman. It's just some other character with an S on his chest.
Yeah. Ill-conceived. Okay, well, let's move on to our next topic, which is about the possibility that serious hints have been dropped about a possible new Star Wars series to be produced for Disney Plus. We don't know a lot about it. We know that it will be the showrunner comes over from the Netflix series Russian Doll, which, if you all haven't seen it, you really should, because it's incredible. And that it's supposed to have a female lead as well. So, opinions. Is this a great direction for Star Wars to go? Are we going to become oversaturated with what this will be the 5th Star Wars series on Disney Plus? What do you think? What do you think this bodes?
I think in this era of streaming services that there's no such thing as oversaturation. If these things are released in a staggered way, kind of like we're getting with Star Trek, that it's not going to really hurt the property. You've had Star Wars Rebels and the reboot and the sequel movies running at relatively the same time, and we haven't seen anything negative. You've had Resistance at the after Rebels ended, and it really hasn't harmed anything. You've had Mandalorian going at the same time as the sequel movies and hasn't hurt anything. So more Star Wars, the better, I say.
I need more info before I can really say if it's a good thing or a bad thing. I don't know.
I will say, if I see Dr. Aphra in this series, I'm sold.
Yeah, you notice I use the Dr. Aphra?
Well, it's also in the name at the bottom. Dr. Aphra
Oh,
is one
yeah,
of the best
yeah, it
things
is
that
the
has
name
ever
of the,
happened to Star Wars.
yes,
If you don't know
that's-
who this character is, get the Darth Vader comic series. You will fall in love with her. She is an evil Star Wars Indiana Jones. One of her first lines, she is stealing a droid AI. And as she's being captured, she says, "It doesn't belong in a museum. It belongs in an armory."
Yeah, it will be interesting to see.
She
who they go
stands
with.
up to Darth Vader.
Darth Vader. That says something.
You know who else stands up to Darth Vader? Everybody.
And then they get horse choked.
Yeah, but not for long.
She survived a Vader execution.
I was gonna say Ventress, but just decided to say everybody.
Well, anyone else want to weigh in on a new Star Wars series under development?
I wish them luck.
Yeah, good luck. I really don't care. There's your hot take.
I hope it works.
Really don't
I hope
care.
they make it. I hope they make it unique. I hope them. That's the thing. Like there's definitely a marked difference between Discovery and Picard. They are different shows. Like they may happen in the same Star Trek universe, but they are markedly different. I think we saw Star Trek oversaturation because we had 7 seasons of TNG, followed by 7 seasons of TNG on the other side of the galaxy, and then we had 4 years of pre-TNG. And so, I mean, I think as long as the shows are varied and they can provide unique spins of the universe, I think it's fine. I think they'll do well.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. Go ahead, Travis.
I was just going to say, I understand what you're saying now, and I totally agree.
Well, one of the things that they have said is that this definitely will be a character and a setting that's different from what you're going to be seeing in the other Star Wars series. So it'll be a different corner of the Star Wars universe. So, so it sounds like that's very much in line with what you're suggesting, Jason. All right, well, we'll keep our eyes peeled on that. Let's move on to our next news topic, and that is that the Venom sequel has been announced, its title, and a release date, although we don't know how real that release date is given the pandemic. Ross, I think this came from you. You want to bring us up to speed?
It did. So, Venom 2, oft rumored and alluded to, but not given details, has been given a title, and which is Venom 2. Let there be carnage. So, what does that tell us? Carnage is in it. Yes. So the Cletus Cassidy cameo at the end of Venom does directly lead to Carnage. He's going to be the main antagonist, and one of the big speculation deals going around right now is that the title alludes to what could be the true big bad of this Venom arc, being a being called Null, the god of the symbiotes. Carnage, in the many roles he's played, it was the enforcer of Null, whose goal within the universe is to pretty much consume everything. So similar to what was going on with the symbiotes in the first movie. The second bit of news is that it's been delayed to about June of next year. Not unexpected, but sad news. So, thoughts?
I don't care. I saw the first Venom in theaters, and I thought it was completely forgettable.
I never liked Venom as a character. Once he sort of separated from Spider-Man, I thought it was interesting for, a few months, but then he just became, its own thing, and it was just kind of ridiculous. And what I saw of the movie did not inspire me with confidence that I wanted to pay money to to see it on screen. So I know it made a lot of money, but it was pretty critically reviled. I remember.
Yeah.
So you're basically saying that Null is basically a parasitic version of the thing the Silver Surfer was the precursor for.
Not exactly. I'm not up on all the details of Null, but I do know that he's kind of a guiding force for the symbiotes. Not exactly, kind of like a hive mind. They're like the symbiotes are like the Great Link of DS9. They're able to merge together and share their consciousness, and he's supposed to be either a progenitor or maybe a Borg queen, something like that. He's a being of evil intent, and he guides a lot of the symbiotes, and Venom rebels against that. And dear God, you're close to the camera.
Yes. What is happening, Travis?
Don't ever mention Deep Space Nine and Venom in the same sentence again.
No, but I mean, I think that's a really good
drawn.
That's a good allegory, right?
Yeah.
Between the Great Link and Venom. And
well,
his
what I would
species.
say is that one property does it right and the other not so much.
I don't know. I you know what? Here's the deal. I hate Tom Hardy. He ruined the TNG movies with Shinzon. He ruined the Dark Knight film with Bane. Right? Like, I hated Dark Knight Rises. That movie was trash. Anyway, but like, I saw Venom on a flight from Charlotte to Salt Lake City before I moved. Quite honest,
Skyping out there.
Really good anti. So I'm actually excited for the sequel, and I'm excited to see kind of what happens. Like, this is like, I've never been a big fan of it, but and I hate Tom Hardy with a passion because he's ruined two of my favorite
so many
franchises.
Yeah.
But I think he did a really good job in the movie. So
I really enjoyed Venom. I thought it was an interesting take on the character independent of Spider-Man. Yep. The Venom his origin is tied with Spider-Man, but he's gone off to do his own thing over the years. And I really like the interplay between Brock and Venom as they were being joined, as they were forming their bond. I think I thought they did that very well, and I'm interested to see where they take it next.
All right.
I would like to see Sony be allowed to bring in Tom Holland into one of these films, though.
They technically still own Spider-Man, so the possibility is there. I think it's just a matter of getting Marvel to sign off on it.
Yes.
Oh, so they should be able to if they wanted to.
Ew.
Was that a vote of disapproval?
No, they seem to have a problem sharing him with. Just when it comes to Spider-Man or anything related to Spider-Man, it's probably some elaborate contract that only do X, Y, and Z, and you can't do this, or you can't do that, or you can't do this, or whatever.
Like divorced parents that want sole custody. They're fighting over the kid.
Bingo.
Yeah. Well, he's a very appealing character and played by a very appealing actor, so that doesn't surprise me.
Not to mention one of the most beloved characters in Marvel.
Yes, indeed. Okay, so let's move on. Unless anyone has any final thoughts on Venom 2, let's move on to not a sequel, but the latest in a long line of remakes of Stephen King's The Stand, which is due to come out, I think, sometime next year on CBS All Access as a series rather than as a film. And Stephen King has been pretty intimately involved. He's written a bunch of the episodes. He's written a brand new ending for it. So if you are a fan of The Stand, the book, or a fan of The Stand in its previous television and film incarnations, there have been so many. Oh my God. I mean, I love The Stand, but do we really need so many versions? Anyway, this one is supposed to have a brand new ending penned by Stephen King himself, which is, of course, being kept under tight wraps. So we don't know how it's going to be different. The article that we have linked on the Trello card links to, or features an interview with Stephen King in which he talks about some of the things that he's seen in common between the pandemic we're living in now and how it's affecting society and what we see portrayed in his story in The Stand. He has been very careful, I know, on Twitter to point out that, this is not the same kind of disease. And he's actually taken down some people who've tried to make more of a connection between his writing and, what we're living through right now.
Hilarious.
But, yeah.
Especially the people who ignorantly ask him how would he know if has he read the book.
Yeah, I saw that one. Yeah. So anyway, this was still in production in Vancouver, British Columbia, as late as recently as March. It was shut down along with everything else because of the coronavirus. So I'm not sure how much more they have to shoot of the series, but I know it's all been written, and it'll be eventually on CBS All Access. I think actually a pretty good move for CBS All Access. It's an established property from an established author who, although Stephen King's adaptations have been hit and miss, most recently, I think they've been actually pretty good. And even the extensions, I was a big fan of Castle Rock, which he did not write. He was a consultant on, but it's set very definitely in his universe. And I thought that was great. It's done 2 seasons. I think it's going into a 3rd. Any other Stephen King fans out there who want to weigh in?
Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, I'm a moderate fan of Stephen King. Shawshank Redemption is one of my favorite films. The Shining again is a masterpiece of a book and a masterpiece of a film. He's done a lot of television work. A lot of his stuff has been adapted to television work pretty successfully. And just a reading is just Misery was an incredible novel. With that said, though, my concern is that this is going to be the precursor of a series of pandemic doomsday television shows that are on the horizon. Right? I think after Y2K, we had a couple everybody loses power for a while. TV shows. I think we're going to be on this cusp of pandemic television for a while, and although it's based on existing property, it's maybe smart for CBS to be the first one to get something on the air. But I just lament the idea of just having to live through this through entertainment for the next 5 years.
Well, I agree with you on that point, but to be fair about this particular series, it was in pre-production long before the coronavirus. So this wasn't a programming decision that CBS All Access made in any way related to what we're living through right now. It just happens to be that way.
Right.
But I think you're right. This could be the herald of, I have been wondering myself about, what is the landscape of storytelling going to be like when things get back into production? Are TV series or films going to refer to this in some way? I mean, it's this huge disruption in society and the economy and everything. But is it the kind of thing that people are going to want to watch once we've lived through it? What do you guys think?
I just
Depends
think
on
it's,
who does it and how they do it.
I think it's rather pornish to call it complete and uncut.
For the first time.
For the first time.
Oh.
To your question, Carlos, we don't have we have a lot of television on, and a lot of it's really good, but we don't have a West Wing on. So following 9/11, the days after 9/11, they wrote. I mean, and it's panned as one of the worst episodes of the one West Wing ever. But Isaac and Ishmael, they rushed a show. Aaron Sorkin and stuff kind of rushed a show together to kind of address the issues of 9/11. We don't have that luxury on television right now because it's not. Everybody shut down. You can't do anything.
Right.
And then there was Designated Survivor.
Which I loved. Did you like it, Ross?
I didn't see it. I just saw a lot of the promotional stuff.
It was. I actually really liked it because in many ways it was a very hopeful story. You know, about a very cynical time in the country following, you know, this terrorist act that kills the president and literally the entire cabinet and all of Congress, and only this one guy is left. And you know, it really, I thought, realistically portrayed a lot of the very real kinds of questions and stressors that would affect American society in the wake of something like that. And the character he was a very inspirational, I thought, and Kiefer Sutherland was great in it. So
Well, he's a great actor. So.
yeah, and so I was glad that it, you know, I think did 2 seasons on ABC, and then it got another season on Netflix. So I'm glad that it was able to hold up for at least that long.
I'll have
Was
to
it
catch up
President
on that then.
Jack Bauer for sure.
Yeah, quite the opposite. He was the secretary of HUD, I think, Housing and Urban Development, and actually was about to have been fired by the president right before the president said, "I'm going to fire you," but hadn't yet. And then, of course, you know, because he was like the low man on the totem pole, he was the one who was sent off to be the designated survivor while everyone else was in Congress for the State of the Union. Of course, that's where the terrorist attack happens, and he's who's left. And so the fact that some, you know, enough people knew that he was on the outs with the president is actually one of the reasons that his opponents tried to question his legitimacy as the successor to the presidency, is because of it. It's a great series. It's all on Netflix if you want to check it out.
Well, I'm glad they went with HUD instead of education, and I'd be getting Battlestar Galactica.
I know. Yeah, housing and urban.
That would have been a nice. What do you call it? That would actually be a nice call, like a Easter egg.
All right. Well, that brings us to Stephen King. I'm glad they're making this version of The Stand. I guess officially, I'm glad. But if they ever make another one, I swear I will slit my wrists. We only need so many stands.
Don't say that, because Alec Peters will make a version of The Stand.
Oh God!
Oh God! Don't say it.
Every generation has to have its own stand.
Don't be ridiculous. Alec Peters can't afford it.
Oh,
Of course
he'll make people pay. Don't doubt that.
That man has one gift, and that is fundraising, and that's it.
But the thing is, he hasn't done anything with it.
Well, and I think you also have to, and I agree with you, insofar as he's able to leverage other people's intellectual property for fundraising. I don't think he possesses any intellectual property of his own that he could leverage in the same way that he does Star Trek. So,
And that's enough talk about him.
yes, it is. That's plenty. So let's move on to our next topic, which is one of our doom topics. And that is whether cable is doomed. And
Yes.
a topic that has been
Short answer. Yes.
short answer, yes. We're actually seeing it, and this is, of course, has been theorized for quite some time, but we're actually seeing some numbers now that suggest that it is now officially well underway, as Verizon lost 84,000 of its pay TV customers in this first quarter of 2020, as those people are now shifting to streaming. AT&T's television unit lost close to 1 million cable subscribers, plus
897,000.
897,000, and another 138,000 streaming customers. So that's not really great for AT&T. It's not great for Verizon. I don't see any moves from Spectrum or Time Warner or Comcast that inspires me with a lot of confidence about the future of cable, where it's basically just a commodity now. But how soon do you think it's going to all come raining down?
Well, the writing's been on the wall for years. as soon as Netflix came onto the scene and started gobbling up subscribers, the people have been predicting the end for a very long time, and the trend has been downward.
Yeah, it's been
for
accelerating.
years and years.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't blame Netflix for this. I think it's just, it's a horrible business model. And none of them inspire any kind of level of customer service. Like,
Well, they're basically monopolies,
right.
which is why you see that.
Yeah, we moved to Salt Lake City. I've actually got Comcast. I had Comcast internet and I had Comcast cable, and like it didn't add any value. The cable didn't add any value. Like this is the first time I've had cable in like, probably 5 years. I was actually looking forward to it, but realistically, I just didn't watch it. Like there was nothing on it like that interested me. And then they took my bill at $15 a month for no reason. And I'm like, cancel it. And I switched over to fiber.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think that we basically have had 2 generations of monopoly by the cable companies, and also not just monopoly, but also all these mergers that have made such big companies that own the market. There's no competition from them. You have an area of the country that's Comcast, an area of the country that's Time Warner, an area of the country that's Spectrum or Cox or whatever. And in all of them, because they have a decreasing amount of regulation and no competition, they've acted like a monopoly, which is that they aren't responsive to their customers. They keep jacking up prices without giving you, any real additional value. They basically just kept making money because there was no one to stop them from doing it. Yep. So I think they wrote their own death warrant.
Real quick to interject in here, Spectrum is actually now, they bought Time Warner and Charter, so now it's all one big company. It's just like Time Warner, Comcast, and I think Bright House or something, and
Didn't
that's it.
Comcast have to sell off Spectrum in order to go through with the acquisition?
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah,
it's its own thing.
Yeah, Spectrum bought Charter, Time Warner, and Bright House, and they're all under the Spectrum banner now.
And it doesn't help that all of these ISPs, cable companies, own the media too. Right. If you look at what AT&T owns, they own Warner Brothers.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
They own Warner Brothers.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
In addition to HBO and they own Rooster Teeth now. That boggles my mind right there.
Comcast is NBC Universal.
Yeah.
Exactly. But, here's an interesting thing, though, about that is despite the fact that these huge cable conglomerates own all of this content and content producing companies, they're still losing. I mean, they're still losing customers. It hasn't really helped them. I think that's what they were aiming to do, but they haven't been able to pull it off. And in fact, we're in the middle of, HBO Max is about to premiere, and it's really questionable how much it will be able to save, AT&T, or, produce for AT&T, I should say.
But they still have, by NBC Universal buying Comcast, right? They now own the one of the right of ways in all those communities that's owned, that Comcast has access to. Mm-hmm. So even though if they're not delivering television, a cable set television experience, they're still delivering the media through the streaming service.
True,
right?
But the difference there is that all they're doing is becoming a dumb pipe, and they don't want to be dumb pipes. They want to have more value added services on top of that. So, but if all you're doing is providing bandwidth, that's not a great position to be in, because that's.
But if you're able to leverage your streaming services as well as part of that, so you're going to get the dumb pipe along with Peacock.
Well, that's the idea. I mean, that's certainly the idea, the theory that they're working under. But the question is, are they going to pull it off? And we're not seeing a lot of indications that that's going to happen. I mean, Peacock, HBO Max, all of these things are the market isn't going to support that many uh, services.
And
It's not.
that's what's good for the consumer. You have this greater competition now. The whole reason these companies are getting into streaming services is they want to get into that market and get a piece of that streaming pie. And in the end, that means more competition in the market, more choice for the consumer, and that means we're going to be able to have more influence in what we watch, in what we want to watch. Except if these media companies, these ISPs, start limiting what we see. So NBC Universal, Comcast has Peacock. They start giving more bandwidth to Peacock and limiting what they see of others. Netflix gets throttled. YouTube gets throttled. Every other streaming service that they don't own gets
that's
throttled.
technically
They can
illegal.
legally do that now. Without net
Not
neutrality,
really.
there is no law, there is no regulation preventing them.
Well, net neutrality doesn't or the end of net neutrality doesn't prevent the prioritization of content, but it's still illegal for you to if you're that company, for you to favor your own content over others. You know,
Yeah,
the end of net
enough.
neutrality is about charging more for that increased bandwidth. So, and that's a separate issue.
Right, a company who would do that, a company who would, like, if Comcast were to favor Peacock over other systems, there'd be antitrust issues there. There'd be serious significant antitrust issues there.
They've
And
been
that
caught
goes-
doing it before.
But the problem is you'd have to prove it.
Well, sure, and that's been a problem in the past, but the technology to do that is improving, you know, by the year. So they won't be able to hide that sort of information soon
See,
enough.
here's the problem I see, and as much as you have the all of these companies making streaming services, even if they do find success in the streaming services, they're never going to reach that cable company money they used to have anyway. You know, you're talking about, you know, a cable company dividends that were $15-20 and up, you know, a month, divided among different. There's no way in hell that they're going to reach those levels like they used to unless they start dicking around with customers just like they did with cable. And here's the thing, with streaming, the populace isn't going to, they're not going to stand for it. You know, the cable model was to charge, to let the customer set it and forget. That you just send the bill out every month, you tack on all those fees, and they pay it because who the fuck cares? It's cable. I've got, I've got
Mercy.
I've got TV. Now that you have streaming, it's here's a set price. I want to watch this, and this. I watch that. I cancel my subscription. Now I can do whatever the hell else I want to do. You know, and it's not they're still trying to bank on this set it and forget it model, but the consumer base is too money savvy now to really let that happen anymore.
Yeah, I mean, we're really seeing in some ways a recreation of the cable model, but now on the internet, which was that, you know, once upon a time, the cable model was that you had all of this bundling going on, and that's, you know, in these tiers, and they would charge you, you know, more and more the higher
the direct TV model,
right, and that's we're seeing that happen now with these streaming services where content is being bundled in this way, and you know, you are being forced to pay a lot to get a lot, even though you may only watch a little. And that was where they ran into trouble in the cable model. So, you know, I'm just wondering whether consumers are going to be savvy enough, and the cynic in me says they're not, to be smart enough to, you know, okay, I'm going to sign up for CBS All Access for these 3 months while this show is on. Then I'm going to cancel that and go over to Hulu and do this over there because they've got that show. Then I'm going to go over to HBO Max and do that over there, because we're seeing all these things add up now, so that if you want to be able to watch everything you want to watch, you're paying as much as you used to be paying for cable.
Cable, yeah.
Yeah, but you're also getting a lot more content.
But you don't have the time to watch the same amount of content, though. I mean, well, I take that back. You folks are obsessed with fucking binge watching shit. So I mean,
We are.
But you're able to consume it on your own schedule. Like, that's the difference between streaming and cable. Is
Sure.
that cable, like, unless you were going to set your VCR, set your timer, and hopefully you didn't f up the 24-hour conversion, and so now you're recording it in the morning instead of in the night. You know, you used to have to do that, and then your tapes. You know, this is, you watch it on your schedule. So appointment TV no longer exists, right? I mean, other than me waking up at 2:00 in the morning to watch Picard when it dropped.
That's right. We all did.
Yeah,
I did.
I stayed up.
Don't tell me appointment TV doesn't still exist.
But I mean,
But I
but
see
by
your
and large, but you
It's
know, I mean,
not as crucial.
right, it's not as crucial. You know, if I want, you know, I can watch it on my schedule. I can watch it when it fits in, and so it doesn't matter that I'm paying $50 a month for, you know, Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus, Amazon Prime, because CBS All Access, because I control when I watch it, and I have the ability to watch, you know, as much as I want when I want to watch it.
Sure, but that's still a lot of money once you put it all together, you know, on top of what you're paying for your internet access. So, you know, so the idea, and given the reality that, you know, we're going into an economy, I mean, that's going to be seriously weak for some time.
Yeah.
And people are going to be even more careful with their dollars and cents than they have been.
But $10 a month.
For how many different things? I mean, you named, how many did you name? You know, and there are even more out there.
what we're going to see is something similar to what's going on in the gaming industry, where for the past 10 years now, every game company has wanted to have its own proprietary launcher and platform for video games, and now you're seeing that they are finding some success, not the success that they wanted, but a bunch of them, I think it was Origin most recently, started folding their games back into Steam because that's where everything was.
For the longest time, Steam was the only game in town as far as PC gaming goes. When it came onto the scene, people were apprehensive and unsure about it, but eventually, as digital sales became more popular and less expensive, it was the only game in town. It was the only place to get PC games. Then Origin tried doing its own thing. Ubisoft tried to do its own thing with mixed to less success. And not until last year, when the Epic Games released their own launcher, did it really mix things up. And now there are a few more out there. GOG has been successful in its own way. The Humble Store is its own launcher as well, and its own game seller. But up until now, the market has been Steam-centric.
But
And
these
the
games
ones that are failed are folding back, and the ones that are working within their own niche are doing pretty well.
But these companies don't have the catalog that a NBC Universal has, that a Warner Brothers has. That I mean these are catalogs that are 10, 20, 30, 40 years in the making. You know, so it's like the content is rich and there, like, you know.
Some are even longer than that.
Right. I mean, think about the Warner's. I don't know what it's going to be called, but the Warner streaming channel. They're going to start off with The West Wing, and Friends, right off the bat.
That's HBO
NBC
Max.
Universal is a catalog that's it's over 100 years old.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm getting HBO Max.
I mean, when Peacock leaves Netflix, or when The Office leaves Netflix, The Office is the most streamed show on Netflix, and when it leaves, it's going to be a big hit for Netflix.
Yes and no, because it's seen huge subscriber growth in this first quarter and in the last month. That, you know, if enough new people sign on and like Netflix, they're likely to stay with it for some time. So they're really taking advantage of, you know, people being stuck at home, and if they can keep them, if they can retain them, they could very well come out quite on top of this. The way we're seeing, Amazon and Jeff Bezos doing in in retailing.
Well, more than that, Netflix has doubled and tripled down on original content.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah.
So much so that it is the main driver of Netflix traffic.
No, it
People-
not. The Office is still the #1 stream show on Netflix.
I said it was the main driver,
Yeah.
not the number one.
Yeah.
But even when The Office goes, there's still going to be a substantial audience for Netflix original content. And it's not like they're only driving one genre. They've got original content in all genres.
Yeah.
But-
I mean, what you're seeing in Netflix is, I just got, my latest, what's coming up on Netflix thing was 15 items. And of those 15, I probably added 11 to my list, which is a pretty decent amount, and that's already targeted to me to begin with. There may be additional content out there that's not targeted to me based on my viewing history, but I think that, on the one hand, you're right. Netflix doesn't necessarily have the broad mainstream kind of thing like The Office or like it had in Friends, but that's never been Netflix's thing anyway. Legacy content has always been one of sort of the ongoing kind of benefits of having a Netflix subscription. But Netflix's overall success, if you will, I think is much more tied to its ability to appeal to niche audiences with a large amount of content. And that doesn't change, even if they lose The Office.
Well, isn't HBO Max the one getting Doctor Who?
I don't know.
I don't remember.
It's going to be interesting going forward. This people voting with their wallets, the content that they choose to see, that's what's going to drive these services forward. Some are going to fold. Some already have, like Verizon's Go 90,
Mhm.
among others. It's going to be an interesting time to observe.
Well, here's the thing about streaming services, though, that I personally like. One, there's no contracts. You can come and go as you want. With cable, you got a contract in most cases where you cannot just stop. You either have to return equipment or whatever else. And,
But I don't-
streaming.
Like, I get Hulu from my cell phone provider, right? So, having these services are going that route too. I could get Netflix. If I switch over to T-Mobile, I can get Netflix on my T-Mobile account.
Alrighty. Guess we should go ahead and carry on down.
Ross feels so defeated.
That was supposed to be a conclusion, guys.
Yes, well, we are moving on to our next topic which is related. As the folks in charge of Warner Brothers dropped broad hints earlier that they're reevaluating the whole theatrical release model for their large films, and that they're thinking that a lot more of what has been traditionally going to theaters may in fact end up going directly to homes as it is right now. And and then there was this huge hoo-ha about whether they were writing off movie theaters too quickly, despite what's going on with the pandemic. And so they walked back some of what they are saying, but it is pretty clear that that they're, I think, hedging their bets. They are holding some content back that they really want to release, continue to release theatrically. Things like Wonder Woman 1984, the Scooby-Doo movie for some goddamn reason. But a lot of things.
Is it naked and they don't have the dog? Because maybe then.
Kids.
Is it not? Hopefully, it's not another live action. Oh my god, that was just horrible.
Some of those were good.
I was making reference to the show Carlos was talking about last week, but whatever.
So what do you guys think? Do you think are movie theaters doomed? Are we going to see the home market become the preeminent release method for release of most films.
I
How do you think?
I prefer the other article title that I saw this week as opposed to this. Now is the perfect time to bring back drive-in theaters.
Yes, I was going to
Agreed.
say that. I was going to say that. I've actually heard that talked about quite a bit. That this would be a perfect time to bring back drive-through theaters.
Yeah, I'm gonna go see Raiders of the Lost Ark tomorrow to drive in.
Nice.
Do you remember the last thing you ever saw at a drive-in theater?
Gremlins 2.
Jurassic Park.
Robin Hood.
Child's Play.
The one with Kevin Costner.
Oh my
It was
god.
that
terrible.
awesome
God.
Bryan Adams song.
Yeah.
Everything I do.
It was one of the last drive-ins to close here in town, and they were playing Child's Play. And
I've seen two drive-in theaters in my life, and both have been closed already.
Wow. Well,
Last time I was
growing
in
up,
California, I was going to go see Star Wars at the drive-in, but we couldn't get the schedule to work.
yeah, I really enjoyed drive-in theaters. I don't know that it's a model that would suffice for people today who are used to having much better sound systems than you could provide in a theater situation like that. Yeah, I'm not sure the viewing experience would rival what you're seeing in good movie theaters today and even your own home. I'm not sure what the
I think this whole thing depends on how long this lasts, right? I mean, how long before we can kind of go back to some semblance of normality? If it's this summer, I think the theaters will bounce back. I think if it's if it's something where we try to open back up and we get another wave and it's bad and we have to continue this until we have a vaccine or a better therapy
or testing.
I think, I mean, if we're talking like rather it being a month or two, we're talking another 18 months. I think theaters are done as we know them.
You don't see them being able to come back at all.
Not the megaplexes. No, I think and there have been times where like I think George Lucas and Steven Spielberg have tossed out the idea of like $50 or $100 movies. I think we could see like standalone cinemas again, where it's more of an event type thing rather than it just you go to the megaplex to watch one of 15 movies.
There's in the last town I lived in, a little town called Boone, Iowa. There was a privately owned single screen movie theater in town, and it's managed to stay afloat during the pandemic. They don't show movies anymore, but they are selling popcorn every week or so, once a week or so.
Really? That's their business model?
Well, it's what they got. They got a popcorn machine inside. People are willing to help support the theater during this time.
No,
They
that's
drive
great
up,
for sure.
Get a big box of popcorn and call it a day.
We have here in town. We have a privately owned 2-screen theater. I don't actually know what they're doing now that we're literally under a city curfew at 9 p.m. Everybody has to be inside, which is weird.
Yeah, we don't even have that here. But of course, all the theaters are closed here. So
You used to have a little, like a cheap dollar theater that was just like $1, $2 for movies, and then they closed that down at the end of last year, and they put a clause in it that anyone that bought the building does not turn it into a theater.
well, let's look at the macroeconomics of this because, what we've been talking about so far has been sort of the consumer level of this, but at the production level, the studio level of this, these movies are still pretty expensive to make. They have to make their money back. And so the question really is, without a theatrical release business model, is a direct to home model going to be able to produce that kind of revenue on that scale and on that kind of schedule that they've come to rely upon? Because, otherwise, films don't make that kind of revenue. They're not going to continue to get that kind of budget, which means we're looking at cheaper films, not as good films, whatever. I mean, really a fundamental restructuring of the economics of film production. So, I mean, there's a lot of questions in the air above this, but I don't think that that the movie industry can survive without theaters at this point.
Well, the
Well,
question
by
is
survive,
what
I
the numbers
mean
say.
they have
What
to
do
make. What?
What do the numbers say then? What's I don't have anything in front of me. I can't tell. But what do movies usually make when they get into the home market?
They don't. They
I
don't
know
make.
that.
Well, it depends on the movie, obviously, but in general, while they may end up making more money than they did at the theater, it takes a lot longer to make that money. They don't get it in 2 weekends or 3 weekends,
Right, but
the way
you
they
also
do now.
but also you have the how do I put it? You have the big bang of the launch, right?
Right.
You don't have on home theater, right? So by
Right.
the time it comes to home theater, if you really, I mean, chances are people who are buying this film probably saw it in the theater, maybe
Or missed it, or I mean,
but probably saw it, maybe saw it twice. So these are people who are committed. I think if you remove the theater experience, I think engagement in home theater becomes much higher, if that makes sense.
Well, see, here's the problem. We've already seen a success of this model, but we're just not equating the two. The Mandalorian. We have something that is pretty much a movie quality thing that's a series. And yes, it's going to require a massive restructure of the film industry to cope with the restrained budget like what The Mandalorian had. But you still have all the marketing hype that went on for The Mandalorian and the people that
I just don't know if that's. I think that's an exception, not a rule. I mean, it's built on a 40-year-old intellectual property, that has done most of its own marketing for it, as opposed to what other productions would have to do, which is starting from scratch from a marketing perspective. So I don't know that I would point to The Mandalorian as sort of the way all things are going to end up running, because it's apples and oranges from
So
a
what you're
marketing
saying is
perspective.
we're going to see even more reboots in the future.
Well, I don't know. It just depends.
I think we need to look at the movies that have bypassed their theatrical release or were released on home theater early. We're going to have to look at Sonic the Hedgehog and the other movies that have come out that have been released direct to home. And we're going to have to keep an eye on the trend going forward, really. We don't have enough data to really say yes or no at this point, I think.
Well, I think this will be the end of the big budget. I mean, I think if this happens, right? So let's just say this thing lasts 18 months and people really get shy about being in public around a lot of other people and they just don't adapt to the theater life, right? We don't go back to that when we can. I think you're going to see, you'll see a restructuring of Hollywood, like Carlos said. You're going to lose. You won't have the big budget blockbusters anymore, but you will have, I think, really thoughtful, story-driven movies that are more.
Wouldn't it be nice if that was one of the repercussions of all this? Because those movies have just been on the downswing for a generation, basically.
Right.
What about some type of a movie platform where, like, it's a pay-per movie instead of, like, a general access type thing?
Well, you have that, like, on Apple TV. Like, we got we bought we rented Sonic the Hedgehog from Apple TV. You have those different pricing models. It isn't just we have to stick it on Netflix and hope hope we can negotiate Netflix pays enough. We can stick it on Amazon and we can have and sell direct to consumers through Amazon. We can stick it on Apple TV and sell direct to consumers through Apple TV for our cost. Like, some of them are like $20. They don't have the rent option. It's, you want to watch it, it's $20. And me and Michelle are like, well, we would have paid 15 or 16 to go see it in the theater anyway, so let's just buy it.
What kind of earnings do original movies make for streaming services? The movies that are made specifically for the streaming services. Do they have?
Well, I mean, they don't break it out
returns?
like that. They don't measure success by how much did this single property make. What they measure success by is how many subscribers did it attract, how many did it help us retain. Those are really the metrics of success for a streaming platform.
I think that might be the metric that we got to look at going forward.
Sure, but see, once you start disassociating the production costs of your content from the overall metric of your success, it's an amorphous link. They're obviously related to each other, but it's more about the the kind of interrelationship of the content that you have. In other words, it's not just that it's the fact that Netflix has so many different kinds of content, some of which are big blockbuster kinds of things that create a sense of value for you as a subscriber that keeps you, paying. But remember, each subscriber, what are we paying? What, $14 a month for Netflix these days?
Yeah.
So
Much.
is that enough revenue to keep producing, big blockbuster items?
A
Netflix
potential
says yes.
a potential way going forward might be the Fathom events model. That's if you're unfamiliar with it, Fathom is an organization that hosts events at theaters, either short run re-release films or special events such as the Met or movie premieres. For example, when Rooster Teeth's movie Laser Team came out, it had a limited release in theaters, but was primarily released for home video.
So is your idea then that that's a model that big blockbuster movies should then follow in the future?
It's an option. It's one of the things I can think of as a possibility going forward.
Yep.
If the current model is no longer profitable, that is one thing theaters could do. If you want that theater experience, we have this huge catalog that you can experience at home, or you could have the theater experience for a limited time. Create a scarcity of an experience.
Well, the
Right,
trouble
but
is that it requires an infrastructure that has to be paid for, and our movie theater chains going to be willing to put all of their eggs in these baskets, these single baskets, to keep their business afloat. And that's a hard call to make. Part of what has helped them survive has been the fact that they have a diverse amount of material in their multiplexes that brings a wider audience than if you just have, one or two big events going on at a time.
It's hard to say. I don't think we have enough information really to predict going forward, but there's a lot we could guess and speculate on, but it's uncertain.
See, I before we started talking about this, that's exactly who I was trying to think of, Ross, was Fathom Events. If Fathom itself became a pseudo Netflix for the blockbuster industry, to become this kind of online virtual event for movies coming out, I think that could work. Because that way they could charge a person individually for viewing through Fathom, and then the film industries would still have their by purchase metrics.
But you have that already, though. Like, again, we watched Call of the Wild. We bought it through Apple TV Plus. It was $20. So it was the three of us, me and my wife and my kid. We wanted to watch it. We were going to see it in the theater. We always watch matinees, so it's always like $5. We go see them on early Saturday mornings, and we just didn't have the opportunity before everything got shut down. It was like this was going to cost us $5 a person anyway. So let's just buy the movie and watch it. So we already have that. So why would Fathom Events come into play here? Because it's just
because Apple TV is folding. Did
No,
you
it's
not
not.
just like
No, it's not. Why
Like-
would you say that? It's not.
Wasn't there another article? Okay, I saw an article even earlier this week about Apple TV losing numbers as well. So
That doesn't mean it's folding. I mean, Apple is committed to this, and they're willing to put billions of dollars into it. So I don't think it's, and they knew they were going to be losing money as a proposition at the beginning anyway, because it takes money, to just get the infrastructure and to get enough content produced to get people to sign on and stay on. So
I'm not even talking about their subscription service either. I'm talking about the ability to use my Apple TV to buy
iTunes,
movies
basically.
directly.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and iTunes isn't going anywhere either. So,
Right.
yeah. Okay, so definitely a lot of information. Ross, you're absolutely right. A lot of information we still need to know before we can really come to any conclusions on it. But I think we all raise a lot of the right questions. So, so let's go on to some interesting news. We talked about this a little bit last week, and that is the upcoming release of the Mandalorian docuseries on Disney Plus. And they released the trailer this week for it, and I thought I'd share a little bit of it with you all. I guess we can't do the whole thing, right, Justin? Justin? No? Okay. Okay, so I'll just show a little bit of it so you
There's
can
the
see it.
tank.
Yeah. And actually, I have to stop and
blows
restart because
my mind with just how novel it is.
Yeah, it's really weird to see it and to see, you know, it look like it's a real thing, but it's all just a projection. There we go.
Using modern technology to reimagine an old filming technique.
Yeah,
this is the kind of thing that was used back from the turn of the century through the 50s. And then again in lower budget projects. This is the kind of technology. This is a reimagining of the technology they use for things like Cleopatra and Ben-Hur, some of the biggest and most beautiful films ever made.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and we talked about needing to cut costs. So this is a significant way to do it.
Oh yeah.
Well, right now this is a very expensive thing to do.
It's expensive once.
Yeah. Well, no,
building it is expensive.
Right,
repurposing it in between, less so.
Eventually, yes, the costs come down, but it's still a very expensive. You know, it's not a turnkey solution that every production company can start to use right away. They can do it because they're Lucasfilm and Disney, and they can afford it. But other people, it's going to be a while before the costs come into a range where it makes sense for them economically. But anyway, let's take a few second peek at the trailer, and then we can talk some more.
The enthusiasm is infectious.
So much of this process is about problem solving and making breakthroughs.
Everyone is coming with their own experiences to a galaxy that can support it.
And then also have a group of filmmakers who were not afraid to jump in.
It's hard to believe all these years later, there's such energy around new stories in this world.
The volume put me back in a set as if it was built.
Look at the outside is all video walls and the top is a video wall.
That was, for me, one of the most rewarding experiences as someone who just loves Star Wars.
Okay, that is so exciting to see. That premieres next week, I think, on Disney Plus.
That is going to be fun to see.
I assume, are most of us planning on watching at least some of it before then? We could do a review of it.
Be getting my hands on Disney Plus, so if I do, yes.
By the way, Carlos, be sure to link that trailer in the Trello card, please.
It is, actually. So, yeah, so it's there for folks to be able to watch the whole thing. It's only two minutes or so, I think, but definitely worth a watch. Okay, so let's cross our fingers and hope it's as good as it looks, but it's certainly what we've seen so far is pretty fascinating. Okay, so one quick news item, if you want to weigh in on it, was the renewal by HBO of Westworld, as it just completed its third season this past week. And how many of us watched Westworld this season?
I haven't seen past season 1.
Season 1 was pretty good.
Man. Yes, it was.
Season 2 was, let's say, uneven. I haven't watched season 3 because season 2, I had a hard time. I didn't finish it. I just had a hard time staying with it. But apparently, season 3, from what I've heard, is much improved. Sean, who unfortunately is not with us today, pants or not, has been enjoying Westworld this season. But you know, it's an innovative story. I think I'm glad that HBO is continuing to give it a shot. But any other thoughts before we move on? It'll be
Yeah, I haven't seen it. Yeah.
well, if you join HBO Max, you'll be able to watch it there and catch up. So that's that. That brings us to our question of the week. I think Ross, you've become our almost official question of the week poser. You want to give us the question and tell us how you'd like us to respond.
All right. So, question of the week: is there an innocent-seeming trope in the stuff that you watch that you find maybe a little disturbing? My example. So, I've talked a lot about in What Are We Watching about my son's interest in TV, and almost all of them involve cars with faces. And that got me kind of thinking, since I have an abundance of time on my hands, about life as one of these vehicles, these living, sentient creatures that are built for a specific purpose, like a backhoe or a dump truck. That is what they are built for in life. That is all they can ever be and become. They can't really do anything outside of their intended function. And that, as I started thinking about it, started feeling really odd to me, really kind of a sad and miserable existence. Of course, it's a kid's show. They don't really go into that sort of thing, but that's kind of what's been running around in my head. So how about you guys?
But
Are there any...
it's the logical conclusion of being a brontosaurus in the quarry.
From the Flintstones?
Yeah.
Or the whistle in the quarry.
So how about you guys? Are there any innocent seeming tropes that kind of rub you the wrong way if you think about it too much?
I'll tell you one that it disturbs me because I want to like this, and that's time travel. I'm a huge time travel fan. But at the same time, just recently, I've been seeing more and more different time travel movies and, on Hulu, on Netflix. And there was one, I think I talked about it a little bit last week, called Erica something. It's a Canadian series that was made, I know, a few years ago, but it's about a woman in her 30s who is given the chance by what appears to be her therapist to go back in time and fix all the things she did wrong, and that she regrets, and with the expectation or the hope that it will improve her life in the present. And instead she ends up seeing all of these what she assumes are the things that she needs to fix are actually not the things she needs to fix, which I like the concept, and and a lot of time travel movies are about that kind of thing. But the thing that rubs me the wrong way about it is that very often it's just it becomes like this spotlight of how stupid people can be. And I just don't enjoy watching people being so self-defeating, so I don't know, self-involved, that I don't know, at some level it just begins to wear on me. Because you're seeing it again and again and again and again. And what was once, I think, a fresh kind of trope, an interesting kind of trope, has become veered much more towards cliche.
What you're saying is you're starting to hate time travel because of every season of The Flash.
Yes, that is exactly it.
Nice.
Yes.
Hey.
I'm just saying, Barry, that I love your character. I love the show, but you're doing the same thing over and over and over and again. And it's like you don't even respect the fact that you're changing time,
You damn metal.
But I mean, this has all happened before. This will all happen again.
So say we all.
I mean, this is it, right? This is the epitome of that, where Picard's given the opportunity to go back in time and right his wrongs, and he became Lieutenant Loser Boy.
Science lieutenant. Yeah. I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's like once upon a time, this was an intriguing kind of exploration, but now it's just become almost like a setup for not quite a sitcom, but like, antics.
Hey,
Yeah.
comedy is just tragedy plus time.
Yeah. Very good point, though. I will agree with you on that one.
Wow.
Any other tropes that other people have found
I
to
think
be ultimately
along
disturbing?
Ross's theme, I would say Toy Story itself, just the whole Toy Story franchise. The idea of having sentience, but being crafted only for the sole purpose of bringing another being joy, and having your entire identity and sense of worth tied up to that. And then when you just get aged out and thrown away into the garbage heap, just wildly disturbing.
Unless you're Kukalaka.
Yeah, there's just definitely some disturbing potential parallels between that and a lot of nasty parts of human history, for sure. So yeah,
and it's something those movies go into. They're not shy and address some of that. Toy Story 3 was all about the inevitability of mortality. They were facing down death in that movie.
And then they had Toy Story 4.
And then they had Toy Story 4.
And there'll probably be a 5.
I haven't seen that movie.
You don't need to.
Don't
worry about it.
All right. Any other tropes anyone wants to continue? We'll move on to our next topic.
One.
Go ahead, son.
The happy ending / hope trope. I would really like to see a film or a series that is tragedy. That basically you do the Picard thing, you do everything you're supposed to do, you do everything right, and in the end, still, it just wasn't enough. It just wasn't there. The cards were always written to be stacked again. I would love to see that. I'm tired of all these happy ending or there's hope at the end kind of movies or TV
so then go
shows.
watch for a minute.
So Blade Runner versus Blade Runner Director's Cut.
Honestly, I don't know. See, here's the big thing.
Just turn on CNN.
Ross is going to hate my guts for this. Ross is going to absolutely hate my guts for this. I would like it applied in video games as well. I wanted Mass Effect to end in a tragedy.
Okay, I see that.
I wanted Mass Effect to end that no matter what Shepard did as the player's character, the universe still ended effectively for humanity.
Depending on how you played it, it could.
Well, true. But, something like, I would love to see something like that be, not a choice of an ending, just a canonical, this is the end.
XCOM.
You should see Requiem for a Dream by Darren Aronofsky.
Yeah, there you go. That's
wow, that is about as tragic as you get.
No,
there are movies like that. I agree. I don't think it's why people go to movies, though. Unfortunately, I mean, I think back with the Greeks, tragedy was a big deal. I mean, it was a real draw for regular folks to go to the theater. I think that in Western society, in the last century, films have largely been looked at as escapist, and so you have the kinds of movies and storylines that you see very prevalent in American films and some. But if you go into more European films and we're seeing now films from Korea and other parts of Asia that are doing this, you're seeing a lot more of those films along the lines that you're talking about.
Right. I would.
Parasite, for example. Parasite is a great example of that.
The 2010 reboot of XCOM, it had hopeful endings, but the canonical ending is the aliens win and conquer the planet. And then the sequel, you go and take it back.
Of course, you have to set up a sequel.
But I would really like to see a return of kind of a dualism in story.
Nuclear war, and it is a very dark, gritty, and forlorn setting. The main character Artyom is trying to go from one end of the metro to the other. He has to go through multiple little micronations in order to get there. It's a microcosm of human history. There are Soviets, there are independent station, there are Nazis for some reason, and then
There's always Nazis.
Well, there's always Nazis, but then you've also got predatory capitalists in there too. And then there's religious nuts who believe that the metro tunnels were carved out by a great worm.
God.
Yeah, that wasn't in the game. That was in the
It
books.
always comes down to the worms.
That's not necessarily untrue, though.
But in the end, it's all about trying to find a solution to a threat called the Dark Ones. These strange beings from the irradiated and uninhabitable surface. And in the end, spoilers, 1, 2, 3, 4. Spoilers at the end, it turns out that these Dark Ones are actually mutated humans who are there to try and help help humanity cope and survive with this mutated world. But you find that out too late, and you've already launched a missile strike to completely wipe out their nest. And you can't stop it from happening.
You've nuked the aliens.
Nuke the aliens.
You destroyed hope for humanity going forward. And that sense of hopelessness and fighting against the hopelessness carries on through the series as Artyom and others exist and survive in this world.
And then, of course, the video game series completely diverged from that, and
not necessarily. It parallels the games because they were the first one was written before, but the second one was kind of written concurrently. The second book takes place parallel but separate from the second Metro game.
Sure, but then you have the third game.
And
Exodus.
the third one diverges pretty significantly.
The third one has a whole bunch of tragic sets, but at the very end of the game, it's like, hey, here's a hopeful end to this entire franchise. And it's like, well, that was just okay.
Okay, we're going to cut you off here because we're running up against our time limit for the show, but please feel free to debate offline and let us know how it turned out. We've got one quick news item, and then we'll go into what we've been watching this week to wrap up. So I got a text message from a friend of mine, former roommate, who got a text message from his father, who was driving around outside Olympia, Washington, and saw this. This is on a beachfront road outside Olympia, and he looked to his right, and in the bushes this is a residential neighborhood, lots of trees and stuff, but there's a house back there, lots of houses around. There was a TARDIS, like just a TARDIS. No idea why it's there, but there it is. And I've been trying to figure out what the story is behind this. I haven't been able to find it, but now I'm obsessed with learning about it. So I will hopefully by the time we come back next week, I'll be able to share with you why there's a TARDIS on Sunset Beach Drive in Olympia, Washington.
Could it be a lawn ornament?
It looks like it's full sized. You know, if you look at the proportions.
Yeah. But I mean, could he just be there because he wanted to build a lawn ornament?
A full-size lawn ornament. Yeah, I mean, it was obviously constructed. Now, to be fair, this is also really close to the Evergreen State College, which is our super liberal, crunchy university here in Washington. And so there's quite likely to be a large number of Doctor Who fans in the vicinity. So that might explain it. In fact, probably does. But it's just a weird thing to just come across on a road, just a regular old road.
I have a question. This pertains nothing to do with what we're talking about. What do you mean by crunchy college?
Crunchy, like granola crunchy?
I mean, are you like talking about hippies?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't get it. So excuse my arcansanness. I just didn't get it.
It's fine. But that's the only hypothesis that came to me upon learning about this. So there's a link to the Google Maps in the Trello that will take you right there. You can use your own Street View to take a look around and see where this is situated. It's right off of one of the inlets of Puget Sound. So behind the houses that you see there is a beach and water. But that's where it is. There's a TARDIS in the middle of nowhere. Maybe it's just stopping by to visit. Who knows? All right. So just wanted to share that with you all today. Let's find out what we're watching this week. Let's keep it quick if we can, please, because we're a little over time. And let's start with the Eyebrows of Doom.
Well, as I've said, the toddler controls the remote most days. But I did manage to get a movie in with the wife, and we watched Saw for the first time.
Ooh.
I knew it by reputation as something of a gore fest, but I actually enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would. It was an interesting psychological thriller that explored some curious themes, and of course that big twist at the end. I really enjoyed that. So it's much better than I expected. So I was glad to see that. Also, my typical YouTube library, and again, Cars with Faces.
Cars with Faces. All right. That's a good slew of stuff. Jason, how about you? What have you been watching?
This week we watched McMillions, which is the documentary on the scamming of McDonald's for millions of dollars through their Monopoly board game. Again, very reminiscent of Joe Tiger, but more highbrow because it's white collar crime. The land of white collar crime. It's all crime of opportunity, and it was just fascinating to see kind of like, realistically, somehow the one guy got something, and that's what made all this possible. If he didn't get that thing just by happenstance, none of that could have happened. And so it was just really interesting to see how like that all just played out.
All right. Very good. Travis, how about you?
Aside from a lot of DuckTales, I, for some reason, watched like 2 or 3 documentaries on the eruption of Mount St. Helens in 1980. Don't know why. Like, don't ask. I just randomly put them on, and the funny thing is, I'd seen them all before, so it's not like I was learning anything new. I also caught up on Star Wars: The Clone Wars, and I cannot emphasize enough just how much I am absolutely loving this final arc of the show. It is phenomenally well done right now. There's 2 episodes to go, but they're doing it in a way that I didn't expect them to really approach, and they're actually making these last episodes take place concurrently with the events of Revenge of the Sith.
Outstanding.
And it's getting very dark very fast, and I absolutely love it. I didn't realize just how much I would appreciate what they're doing with this, but it's like shit's getting real. That's all I can really say. I'm trying not to spoil things for people, but I mean, like, I know I've said this a lot, but I'll say it again. It's time that you guys start watching this because I want to fucking talk about the show.
It's on my list.
We'll try to catch up to you, Travis. You're right. Okay. Anything else?
Nope, that's it.
Okay, Son, how about you?
Okay, so Liana Kersner, also known as Liana K on YouTube, did a 3-part interview this week with Professor Chris Ferguson, who's a psychology professor at Stetson University. And the reason she did an interview with him is because he was actually, and has been actually, going back into and peer reviewing and creating his own basically kind of research and timeline of video games, social censorship, Gamergate, social media, all that kind of stuff, and how all of these things keep being bundled together as one thing when they really actually should be separate things, and how it's whose fault that may be or could potentially be, and how different aspects of those different things spill over into other things, like how much of Gamergate was actually gamers being what was portrayed, and how much of it was people being assholes on Twitter as Gamergate. So it's a really interesting interview. So I definitely go and check it out. Another thing I watched this week was Defunct Land on YouTube. Released a video of the history of Tomorrowland 1955.
Really?
Which was the original Tomorrowland, or the original idea of Tomorrowland, and how that changed over the course of about a decade or two, and then changed again as they revamped Tomorrowland to what it would become more like what we know today.
Which is boring.
Well, yeah. But trains.
In the land of next Tuesday.
Wednesday.
The last thing I watched, and this was a couple of weeks ago, I just kept forgetting to mention it, is a new Fallout fan film dropped last year, and I never found out about it until a couple of weeks ago, and it's called Vault 45, and it's fascinating little look at a human psyche, for them having one job. You had one job, and yeah, that goes exactly how you expect. So yeah, I definitely go and check that one out. Lastly, 14 hours ago or so, Lindsey Sterling posted a new music video called Sleepwalking. It's beautiful.
All right. Thank you for sharing that. And that brings us to our stalwart producer, Justin Burton. Justin.
I haven't really been watching much other than the DuckTales, but I have been playing a lot of video games this week. So, there you go.
All right. Well, in a stunning reversal from me, I actually was spending a bit of time this week playing a video game, which
Yes.
I never do.
What?
It is, it's this kind of ocean adventure / education thing. It's made in conjunction with BBC's Blue Planet, uses some of their footage. And it's it's on Apple Arcade, and you basically play this diver who you have to go around and, classify marine mammals and stuff, and gather scientific samples and use acoustic buoys and stuff. But the graphics are beautiful. I mean, you really feel like you're swimming under, in the ocean.
This sounds like a game I'd really like.
It's on Apple Arcade. It's called Beyond Blue. Definitely worth checking out. I have been playing it probably for about 3 hours, and there's still lots more to do. So
what you're saying is you're playing a more highly specialized version of Animal Crossing.
God, I hope not. No, because you're not building your own island and people visit. You're going to visit whales and whale sharks. I love it.
That's the thing. For Animal Crossing, what Animal Crossing is doing now has never kind of been the thing for Animal Crossing. Animal Crossing has always been about building a life and having and living that life. What you're talking about is living the life of someone who does ocean stuff. It's kind of the same
bootleg version of Animal Crossing.
Every time I hear Animal,
simpler version of Subnautica.
Ooh.
I wouldn't compare it
anyway,
to Subnautica.
I've been enjoying it. That's how I've been spending time this week.
Awesome.
In terms of other things I've been watching, the season conclusion of Little Fires Everywhere on Hulu was this week. It was brilliant. The last 15 minutes are some of the best television I've ever seen. I finally finished watching on Apple TV Plus the Amazing Stories reboot that they did on there. Only 5 episodes. I thought it was more than that, but it turns out to only be 5.
How was it?
And I would say it was kind of uneven. They had one about this woman who's been in a coma for 6 years, and she wakes up out of nowhere, and her daughter, who was only 12 when she went into coma, is now 18 and dropped out of high school, and things haven't gone so well. Anyway, it just took a really, really long time to get to the point of what this story was. So it was really slow moving. And I've noticed that in some of the other amazing stories as well. Not all of them, but some of them, that it takes a while to get to the amazing part of the stories. And then the final one, this season finale, was one called The Rift, about this World War II pilot who goes through a space-time rift and ends up, crashing in, outside of Dayton, Ohio, and is found by this woman and her stepdaughter, who's her husband has recently died, and so they're having their own little troubles, and then they meet this guy from the 40s, basically. And I'm not sure why I'm getting feedback. Why am I getting feedback? Are you guys hearing that?
Yeah, I heard that's Justin.
Okay.
Yeah, you're sharing audio.
Oh yeah, you're sharing audio. Thank you. That's probably why. Okay, so anyway, so it took a while. There were some poignant parts to it, but just again, it took a while to kind of get up and running. So overall, I would probably give Amazing Stories B-, just slightly above average. But great production values and intriguing ideas, but not necessarily executed in the best way possible. So that's Amazing Stories. I also started watching on Apple TV Plus Home Before Dark, which is a series based on a true story, also set here in Washington State, about this little 9-year-old girl who is an investigative journalist and is working to solve the mystery of this missing kid from in her dad's hometown that they've moved to, and it's actually pretty good. I'm about 3 episodes in. I think it's worth a watch. Then my guilty pleasure, Outer Banks on Netflix, still watching that. Still no shirts, I'm just saying. On a higher brow note, continuing, I think I'm on episode 3 of The Good Fight on CBS All Access. It's as good as it's ever been. And then finally, I already told you about Beyond Blue. So that's what I've been doing this week. And I think that wraps us up for this episode. So thank you, everyone, for your thoughts, dreams, desires, comments, etc. And
let's turn the audio.
Yeah, you're sharing audio again.
I was going to play us out.
Well, wait till we're done, then you can play us out. Okay, so program note, we're still on a weekly schedule, so we will be back next week with the news and comments of the week in science fiction and other genre. Thank you to my co-hosts, and we will see you next week. Now you can play us out, Justin.
Play us out, Ray.